Hey, Changemaker! Welcome to Learning for Good, the only podcast that teaches nonprofit leaders how to leverage training to drive performance, improve capacity, and fuel their mission impact. Do you ever feel like your nonprofit is growing, but your people just aren't keeping up? Or like you're fixing the same problems over and over? Do you wonder how to build confident, capable staff who know how to lead, not just execute? If we haven't met yet, I'm Heather, and I know how hard it can feel to get people to do what's expected of them. Trust me, I have 3 kids. I've tried telling people what to do and how. I've tried the traditional training approaches, and I realized that just doesn't work. And that's when I started researching what does work. Now, I help mission-driven leaders use learning to drive performance, build capacity, and make change that lasts. And I'm sharing it all on this podcast. So block your calendar, turn off your Teams or Slack chat, and let's dive in. It's Learning for Good. I was in a sorority in college. I don't know how many of you were also involved in Greek life or have had kids who were, but I want us to imagine for a moment that you are somehow responsible for getting a bunch of college kids to make good choices and stay out of trouble. I don't have college-age kids yet, but I have been in college before, and I can't imagine that they would be very receptive to a bunch of adults they don't know sitting in a quote-unquote corporate office telling them what to do and what not to do. Yet a lot rides on their choices. There's a lot of risk involved. And Greek organizations want their members to be safe and to develop into productive adults. And they want to protect their brands too. So when we're thinking about a bunch of college students with free will, whoa. Do we think telling them what to do, forcing them to comply will work? Of course not. It doesn't work for 2-year-olds. It doesn't work for 52-year-olds. Why would we think it would work for someone who is 22? So what does work? Culture. When you join a fraternity or a sorority, you are joining a community. You are adopting an identity, and you are jumping into a pre-existing culture. And that's what compels people to use their free will to adopt new behaviors or pursue certain changes or make certain decisions. We have a few learning and development professionals from Greek organizations in the nonprofit L&D Collective, so maybe one day we'll have a podcast episode with them to talk about how they actually influence the behavior of college students. But for now, I want us to think about this and compare it to our workplace. Because our workplace also has a culture. And it's culture, not compliance, that drives consistent performance. Let's dive in. It's Learning for Good. I don't have data readily available on this right now, but I'd argue that most training fails, or at least fails to change behavior. Why is that? Because people attend training and then go back into their same environment to navigate the same system with the same processes on the same team with the same leadership. As soon as things get busy or hard, it's natural for us to fall back on what feels comfortable. And new things, they're not always comfortable. So if we want training to work, if we want to create change, we have to influence the culture around us. Let's start by defining culture. What do I even mean when I say that. Merriam-Webster says that culture is shared beliefs, customs, goals, values, practices, right? It's this shared set of things that say, this is what we do here. And culture matters because it shows up in how people work together, how decisions get made, how feedback is given or avoided, how conflict is handled or not, and overall staff performance. So how can we create an environment where our staff have some shared beliefs, customs, goals, values, and practices? So I think you're probably at a little bit of an advantage being a nonprofit because you already have a mission or a purpose for existing. There's an anchor that's already there, and it's very likely that the people who join your organization already align with that mission. They likely already share some beliefs around healthcare or youth development or poverty or disabilities or animal rights or justice or faith. So for the purposes of this episode, I just want to assume that's the case. What then can you do to nurture and build upon that? I want to start by thinking about goals. If you're a nonprofit executive, one of the things that you can do is to make sure your organization has clear strategic goals, because that impacts what everyone is doing, what everyone is working towards, and it impacts the clarity that people have. If you're an HR leader or talent development leader, you have a huge opportunity to make those goals relevant to staff. And this shows up in a few different ways. The first is clear expectations. We want to make sure staff know what is expected of them. So what do those goals, those strategic goals, those organizational goals, what do they look like in individual staff roles and workflows? We want to clearly define and communicate success. If there isn't clarity, they likely will not hit performance expectations. So it has to be clear what they're focused on, what they're working towards for everyone. It has to be shared. The second is performance reviews. Performance reviews add a structure, a system that's shared, and that gives staff the ability to see what those expectations are. It gives them the autonomy to own the work. It gives them clear rewards or consequences for their actions, and it gives them accountability to follow through. So while performance reviews aren't always the most exciting thing to talk about, they actually do help create this sense of shared goals. Now, the last thing under goals that I want to talk about is training. And this is where we spend a lot of our time on this podcast. But training and other solutions are a huge part of shared goals because you can equip people to execute on the goal. If people don't feel capable, they aren't likely to try. So training builds their confidence and their skills so they can meet expectations. So it allows them to pursue those shared goals. And many times it's also a shared experience. Another key component of culture is shared practices. Again, like this is how we do things. This is how things get done here. And this means creating consistency in things like leadership behavior, decision-making, feedback, follow-through, even meeting norms is a good one. A good example of this is in my episode with Julie Lingle-Giulioni, where she talks about how people managers can support their staff's development. Julie is the author of Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go, and in our episode together, she covers leadership behavior, feedback, and norms that can help shape the culture of your organization. So as an HR, talent development, or L&D leader, this means investing time and resources into leadership development. That impacts the shared practices. Now, culture isn't shaped overnight, and it doesn't change overnight either. If you are seeing a need to shift culture in your organization, just know it takes time and effort. I'm going to share a practical starting point here with you today, but I also encourage you to come join us inside the Nonprofit L&D Collective. It's a private community just for people who are creating training. They have some sort of training responsibility in their nonprofit organizations, and they are also facing organizational culture challenges and successes, and can really share a lot of insight into what's worked for them. As a practical starting point, I'd recommend identifying one behavior that is happening or is being avoided that is currently impacting performance in your organization. So maybe it's managers avoiding feedback, maybe it's a lack of follow through in customer interactions. Just identify one pain point, one place you can improve. We want to keep this really small, really focused to begin with. Then I want you to do some analysis to figure out where that behavior is supported and where it's undermined. This could be by people, systems, structures, reinforcement. You'll start to see it as you do this analysis. And once you've identified that root cause, create a solution or set of solutions to change it. You'll need to incorporate behavior change principles here. So if that's new to you, you're in the right place. We talk a lot about behavior change on this podcast. Hit the subscribe button and you'll hear a lot of episodes related to behavior change. I also recommend taking a multifaceted approach. So when you have identified these root causes and you're starting to create solutions to change the behavior, I would recommend creating interventions for staff, equipping managers to reinforce the behavior, and supporting leaders in modeling it. And over time, you'll start to see behaviors change and culture shift. And that's what we really want. We want to create change. I'll see you next time on Learning for Good. Hey friend, was this episode helpful for you? Did you like what you heard? Do you want more content like this? Here are 3 things you can do. Hit subscribe. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast app of choice. Share this episode with a colleague. This means so much to me personally. I read every review, but it also helps me learn what content you like most so I can create more of what you want. All right, turn that Teams or Slack chat back on when you're ready, and I'll see you next time on Learning for Good.